Hey everyone, Butley and Patch here. We are looking at our fourth episode of Tactics Ogre. Let us cling together. How you doing, Patch?
Yeah, pretty good. Eager to keep discussing what we were discussing before. I don't know how much we'll actually focus on the game this time, to be honest.
Yeah, so let's recap where we're at in the game just quickly. We are on our
Okay.
journey to... We saved our Duke, our leader of the Wallister. And we are on a path to... He had his main general, Sir Leonard, on a mission, and he sent us to reinforce him. And that's what we're doing, fighting our way to Leonard.
Alright.
Now we have Canopus. I just want to wait. I want to explain something before we go on to...
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of looking at games. Because...
Is that a necromancer?
That guy's not a necromancer, he's an Abuna, a priest.
Oh, for a moment I thought it was a gangster. Or possibly a Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, he has a whip. There are whips.
Look at
in
his
this game.
hat.
So we meet our first, he's obviously all of the characters are named, but this is kind of like another named NPC in the traditional sense, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like Canopus is a named NPC, he's like a character who is always the same. And what was his name? Donatello or Donalto? Donalto? I'm not sure. And we meet necroprentice.
You can put necro before anything and it sounds cool.
So they're talking about Nebeth, who, if you remember, he was the guy who was supposed to defend the castle that our Duke was at, but then he went AWOL. And Leonard's out this way as well, so I suspect those two may have met up.
He's probably at the castle right now going, oh, what happened? Great, now I gotta go check on my necroprentice. Make sure she's doing okay.
So, you'll notice Exorcism is level 3. A level 3 unit, and I have a level 2 cleric who can't use it. And when I was talking about hiring an extra cleric, it's kind of a trick, because you kind of need Exorcism. But if you just do what I did, and take one cleric and make a straight beeline for this map, you will never be a level 3 cleric, and you can never use Exorcism.
Ah.
Whereas if you get the second cleric, you get that extra level, and then you're fine. Because Gatua is actually a priest, I believe, so she doesn't level up clerics. Can't remember. Actually, I'll have a look at the end. So anyway, that was the little trick I was going for when I was trying to hire the extra cleric, because it kind of sucks for that last mission where you don't need it, but it's worth it for this mission.
Yeah.
Because what happens with undead units is they don't die, they basically go on a counter like you do when you get knocked down for 3 turns, and then they revive, because you can't kill them. So you have to use the exorcism ability to purge them. It's the only way to get them off the map. And
Are they any weaker?
no.
Can you hire them?
No. Not
Oh.
yet. So what sucks in this mission is that obviously Donalto has exorcism, and Gatua does, but we don't control either of them. And they also have healing spells, and they 100% would rather heal you than purge an enemy. And so if you're not careful, this mission can easily get out of hand. And it's early on, it's surprising. If you don't know what you're doing, it can get out of hand, because these undead units just keep respawning and you just keep taking damage. These little ghouly things are like the casters of the undead, and obviously the skeletons and the grunts and the rangers.
Well, wasn't the win condition beat the leader?
Yep, Moldova at the back.
So, technically, even a new player can just rush that, even if they can't beat anything else. You just down the skellies and then bull rush past. Or something to that effect.
Yep, you're not wrong. I did mention that if you get stuck in a lot of these missions, Canopus can carry you. And if he gets a turn, because we control him now.
Yeah.
And he can make, like, especially with the elevation and the buildings, it's actually making a bit of a platform. He can kind of make couldn't line up how'd hit that skeleton, even though I looked at it.
Oh, no, you looked perfectly right, to be honest.
But I couldn't hit him anyway, so... But this is the cool thing about the way it plays, like, I can just take the movement back and go where I should go.
Yeah.
So here I'm trying to set up a bit of a pinch, and then I immediately send my warrior and wreck it. But yeah, so Canopus gets to move. So you can see, like, straight away, I'm going to start looking at, like, getting him to flank. This isn't a good example, but if I zoom out a bit, you can see the sort of, like, water on that side that you can jump the river with him and get a free shot at Moldova, so I made a bit of a mistake there. I feel sorry for Mr. Balchard and not protecting him well in the last couple of missions, but fortunately he has 3 healers, so...
He'll live.
We need to think. It's too early to worry about this too much. But, I think, actually, just quickly, I think just then our archer shot outside of the range. If the colored tiles, yeah. So they can do that, especially downhill, but you notice it's easier to block, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
What we need to think of, I changed our main character to warrior. Usually the main character is the easiest one to change, because you have so much other skill. Sometimes it can make up for not having a high class level. But I don't really want to stay as a knight, because knights, you tend to need to go into the divine tree to really get the most out of them, because they can learn, like, healing spells and stuff like that, and I don't want to spend our main character the whole time healing and stuff. Later I want to change it into something with more damage, so I don't want to get stuck on the knight tree too much, you know what I mean? Otherwise, because we're going to need to get knights purely for healing, but we don't want to invest any healing into any healing with our main character. So we'd have too many knights and we'd just overlevel knights too much if that was the case. Point being, if you see us collect any class marks and you see anything that's interesting, point it out, because I would look for an interesting way to change our main character. Like, we could go berserker, but I probably don't want to do that. Probably find something more interesting than that. So you can see here, I'm trying to get the skellies off the back line anyway. You can see
your ally is an idiot.
Which one? Vice. Oh yeah, he's gonna go and take these guys on all on his own.
Good luck. I noticed you can heal the undead.
It hurts them, yeah.
That's always a novel mechanic, yeah.
It's good. It's actually really cool, because it turns your divine mages into something cool. Yeah. Actually, one thing I've never actually done... Oh, no, wait, I know why I haven't done it. It's because your mages can't learn the divine tree, and your clerics can't learn others. I was going to say, I haven't really ever had, like, a red mage who can sort of heal, and... Well, red mages are more support mage these days, but you can definitely have that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just meant I've never had anyone who heals and deals damage. There's a class called Priest, which... I think it's Priest, that kind of learns offensive divine magic, but it's really hard to get the marks for it. So like, you'll see that on occasion Kachu will use Spirit Surge, which is an offensive divine move, but general clerics can't learn it. But again, it's just another thing. It actually just adds to the game when you have things like that. Like,
yeah,
you have clerics that can heal, and then you have like special clerics that can learn this, or you can have mages that learn divine magic, but they can't heal, but they can use the divine buffs instead.
The Vice just killed himself, right?
He just turned his back on like all the dudes and took an easy hit. I don't know.
Yeah.
We got 3 healers. This is the thing. Sometimes you can sustain a lot of damage. I'm literally there, just I'm like, everyone's going forward, but I'm going to stay at the back and protect from these skeletons. But what I should mention about Donalto is that he's a guest at the moment, and it's the same with most of the guests. Sometimes they will join the party after the mission, except if he dies, that's it. He doesn't have the 3 life policy if he's not part of our team. He will go down for 3.
That is
I don't even think he goes down for 3 turns. I think he just dies straight away. Those rules only affect our team members, so you meet a lot of
That is the
NPCs.
big thing I hate the most.
Well, it's not. The thing is though, like it's annoying in games where you only have a few NPCs, right? Like if I was to lose him, yeah, he's a slightly better cleric than most other clerics because he's a named character. But if
Yeah.
I lost him, it's not the biggest deal. I've got a perfectly good cleric right there. I've got Quechua. Like, it's not the end of the world. And so it's kind of alright. Like, I don't mind. I cast that absolutely wrong.
I know.
It was terrible. I
was
looked at
watching
it
you.
for like 5 seconds and then moved once and did wrong. Yeah, so point being, like, there's all sorts of characters like that you meet along the way. And if you can save them, you get a chance to recruit them. And if you can't, well, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world because there's so many of them. There's a few, if you want to play like a really top draw team, there's a few that you really should collect. And if I find those missions, I will be doing my damnedest to get them, even if you don't use them in your active team. It's cool just to see them. But,
You know, the longest I've ever played a tactical game. It's quite a story if you're willing to hear it.
yeah, sure.
So there was a game, I don't know what it's called. It was a free game, tactical game. It was set in some, you know, some world. It was about mechs and mech pilots. And yeah, it's the same, it's, you know, the usual story. A nation invades and your hometown gets wrecked and you go on an adventure to save people. And I don't know what it was about that game, it just really sort of worked for me.
Yep.
But I remember I played, it was only a demo, but it still had like a good 8 or so levels and at least one branch in the path. It was really good. I never actually finished the demo because it got too hard. But one of the levels would start with this person, and they were in really poor terrain. They could only move one space a turn. And you controlled them. And you basically had to reach them and rescue them from the attacking forces. But I could never do it. And I think that put me off tactical RPGs forever. Because I couldn't save this one person.
As someone who's played a lot of these type of games, yes. Things like that, or escort missions where you have useless units that you have to defend, or people, or whatever. Oh, it's so annoying. They're the worst. But the thing is, though, it's like they're almost part of the genre now. That every good tactical game has to have it. As much as everyone like, it's like what you love to hate, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not a criticism of the genre. It's more like it's a personal fault that I don't enjoy that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd like to say everyone hates them, but you know, you love to hate them.
Yay!
So you'll notice if you were watching the stream, I threw a flower at him last turn. The main character threw a red flower at Donaldo.
Oh, and
like
that healed him?
flower, and it gave him enough mana.
Oh, okay.
He needs 40 mana to use Exorcism. And here I get to use my first spell. Offensive spell. The cool thing about Magic, it's like any game. Some stuff Magic deals a lot of damage to, some stuff you have to brute force with physical attacks. So what I did with Canopus, I didn't want to just, like, I could probably finish the game as soon as Canopus gets another turn. But I spoke before about weapon proficiencies, and it's important to level up, like every attack levels up your proficiency. So if I get a chance to do a few extra hits and take a few extra hits without, you know, costing me the game or any characters, I'm going to try and do that. So I sort of deliberately prolong the rest of this fight, even though Canopus could just probably do an extra 20 damage with his bow, and that'd be it. So it's kind of this sort of dance you do. As soon as the battle stops going in your favor, you have to rush to finish it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, we got our cleric that doesn't know anything except healing spells down there to help Vice out, which was cool.
Yeah. And then they immediately took a 43 damage hit.
Yeah. So you can see here, what I wanted to do, I put the hit on Moldova because she's like she's a necromancer, but that's a mage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me talk about finishing moves first. Obviously, so when you charge up that little yellow bar down the bottom, That's like tactical.
Oh, is that
you
what
can
it
use
is?
your abilities, not your magic. You have skills and abilities. And when you get over 100, you can use a finishing move. And what finishing moves you have depend on the mastery of your weapon, right? So Canopus is cool because he has level 2 in bows and axes. That's why he has 1 for each. Whereas none of our other characters have level 2 in anything yet, so he's the only one who can use finishing moves yet. But you can imagine I could have dealt 100 damage to Moldova there and it can't miss, so I would have wrecked him. Well, it might be able to miss, to be honest. I can't remember. Point being, I pushed him out the back and shot Moldova the first time. I just wanted to push her away from the attack, because if she just stepped forward and started like dropping 60 or 80 damage nukes on my team, I wasn't ready for that. And so the first shot was like the warning shot, and it forced her off. Anyway, the rest of this fight just sort of goes as you plan. Did we want to? We were talking last time about Marvel Comics, and we started talking about the idea that despite how good Marvel and their whole setup seems, their comics or their newer comics or their new approach to making comics seems to be struggling at early signs.
Yeah.
We were talking about. Yeah, you go.
Well, I was going to say we suggested a few like ideas of what they've been trying to do.
Oh,
like maybe
quickly,
they've been trying to set up.
See, Vice just jumps out. He's like, "I'm low. I don't want to die." Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, we were talking about how they've been planning certain, like, I don't know, planning for the future with their characters.
Right.
Because a lot of the discussion when you talk about the new Spider-Man, the new Miss Marvel, the new Iron Man, the new Thor, all that, a lot of people they pin it on diversity for diversity's sake. But there could be more to it. Like there could be an intentional attempt to revitalize comics, and there could be an attempt to like give more fodder for the film universe in the future. Because that's something I wanted to bring up. Is inarguably the movies are more profitable than comics. Comics, you sell like in the thousands. Like
yeah, comics are cult following and. The movies are very mainstream. Like
a really good comic might sell 50,000 copies, and each of those sells for like $5. A really good movie hits an audience of millions, and each ticket to a movie might be, like $8 plus.
Well, Captain America,
whatever else you got in
over
there.
1 billion. 1 billion.
Yeah.
In US dollars or something.
And that's sort of like an oddity. I don't know. It's sort of like when you look at the comics and what comics bring versus what the movies bring, you can sort of see how they wouldn't care too much if their comics take a hit, as long as they've got more content that they can try and test for the movies.
Okay,
Not to say that's what they were doing.
Here's an interesting idea. So, it's funny, Okay, let me say the idea and then we'll peel it back.
Yeah, go ahead.
At what point did they create a character for a movie in one of these comic book style movies that isn't a pre-established comic book character?
It was Agent Coulson, wasn't it?
Maybe. He's a good example. He is a prime example. But there's one of him. And maybe Maria Hill, I don't know.
Yeah, not sure about her. I honestly don't know most of these
she's the
other characters, like I only know the big name ones.
In the Avengers, she's the other human. That isn't Nick Fury.
Yeah.
The other S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Yeah.
So, like, that's my point, but the thing is, they're humans, right? They're not superheroes.
Yeah.
At what point do you create, like... Oh my god, I don't even... There's so many superheroes, I can't even mention a superhero that wouldn't already be some kind of superhero, right? Like, what about, like, we make Elephant Man? It's like, right? And whatever. So, at what point do you say, okay, we're going to make a movie about Elephant Man? You know? Like, why would we...
Is he a new character?
Well, my point, so think of it this way. So, they're making, say, Miss Marvel. Remaking Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
And the idea will be, get that in the comic book circulation. Purely so we can make a movie about a female character later. I'm okay with that. That's fine. At what point do you say, why should we make 50,000 on comic book sales worldwide when we're going to make $1 billion worldwide on the movie? Why do we even do the comic? Let's just start making superheroes up and putting them in movies. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
if they're remaking comic book characters just to jam them in movies, why do we do they even need that first step?
Well, that's no, that's what I was saying about the comics. Is I think if that is their intent, then what they are doing is they put a new character in the comic, and they test. It's sort of like a testing audience, like when you run your first episode screening to an audience to see how they react, and then you change it according to that.
Yep.
You can sort of demo this character to a comic book audience, and you can do it for about 3 or 5 years, I imagine, before you even consider doing a movie for that character. Because some of these characters, even the new Spider-Man, has been around for a reasonable amount of time already. He's actually been around for at least a couple of years, I think. Could be even longer. And you could have people grow attached, and you could have eventually a good story will emerge from him, or you'll get someone will write a good story. They come up with this great idea, they do this good comic, and people pick it up and they read it, and then out of that you get this great story that you can put into a movie. And comic books give you that opportunity to sort of field test it without dropping all the profit into all the funds into a movie that might flop. Because you don't want to put millions of dollars into, say, Guardians of the Galaxy if you don't know it's going to be a success. The Guardians of the Galaxy was already popular, so they knew it was a safe bet.
They were going to get something out of it. Yep.
Yeah. And so there's sort of that safety with doing a comic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But the real damage being done is, to get back to the original starting point in the previous video, was the comics in the comic selling companies, the shops in question, were talking about how it's become almost detrimental to get Marvel. Not actually detrimental, but they can't stock it as much, which is bad because it's one of the big 2 comic book companies. But this isn't something that applies to all comic books. There are other comic books doing just fine, Transformers, and you've got DC, and you've got
Do you think
all
that
these other
people
ones.
Would get kind of
IDW.
tired that they don't properly line up? Or you've got, okay, let me explain a different example that is kind of the same. So I haven't read the Harry Potter books, right? But I've seen the movies. Now, am I ever going to go back and read the books? And I get that a true involved fan would be yes. But me, I'm a casual observer of Harry Potter. Personally, I don't really enjoy it. But am I ever? But I like reading books. Am I ever going to go back and read those books? No, because the story is told differently. The detail and the information is differently. If you said to me, okay, you've seen Captain America: Civil War, are you going to go back now and buy a comic and read about Civil War? I, as someone personally quite invested or enjoying the Marvel world, might say yes, but I can understand how a more casual viewer who just enjoys the movies and that's all would say no. Whereas if you said to them, do you want a Captain America Civil War thing, they might go, yeah, I'm relatively interested in Captain America and Iron Man fighting. I'll read that magazine comic book. Whereas if they've seen the movie, they don't want to see the same story told twice in different ways, right?
No. But that being said, I don't know. That it's almost interesting to look at comic books as a medium themselves. Because comic books, they obviously have a lot of history. They've been around for 60, 70 years now. And the idea of a book, a cheap book, like a thin magazine size, that tells a story, it's got art, it's got, words. It's sort of like a fusion of mediums at the time.
Right.
TV was still not a big thing back then. You had comics, you had radio, and that sort of, it fit in a way. You could produce comics, you could produce newspapers. Whereas in the modern day, these things are sort of falling out of favor.
Right.
It's sort of who did the comics appeal to? Who buys comics? And it's people who are fans of the characters and want to read more stories about them. And that's where you get this sort of double-edged sword, because the people who are interested in the characters of the movies go look at the comics and they go, oh, well, these aren't the characters I'm interested in.
Because they're not the same.
I'm not going to buy them.
Yeah, because
it's not the same character.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it just has to build up over time. But I don't know. I had another point, but I can't quite pin it down at this moment. Sorry.
That's right. Honestly, we're pinning for time, so we don't have time
Yeah.
to skip on another tangent. But we will have more episodes where we can talk about this stuff. It's pretty interesting. Like, I mean, I don't want to always talk about the same thing, but the way Marvel is approaching their whole thing is such a big deal in the world we're in right now. So it's pretty.
I do have one final point.
Yeah, sure.
And that's, how many times have you heard like someone endorse a book or a movie? Like you go out there and you see back in the day Oprah would be like, this is a great book.
Right.
You know, or like this famous person, you know, Ellen DeGeneres, a talk show host. On the internet you'd see reviews of movies, of games, like people buying games, every game they can, especially the popular ones, on day one and playing it and putting a review on the internet. Well, is there anything like that for comics? Sorry, I know that we're really pressed for time, so I'll cut myself off, but I just want to make that point that there's not as big an avenue for comics. There's not a big following like it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good food for thought kind of thing, isn't it? We should definitely, I think it's a good note to finish on. Leave that out there for people to think about. Can comic books survive in this modern world where we have, I don't know, the internet and stuff like that? God, my mouse pointer came on screen. That's bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wind up there. Thanks everyone for listening, and keep an eye out for episode 5.
Yeah. See you then.
Cheers, guys.